Well, the Buffaloes are back from spring break. It sounds like everybody made it back, and we made it back as well. How was your spring break, Brian?
It was pretty good. It was pretty low key. The kids were off, and we have a family vacation coming up in the summer, so we didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
Just kind of low key.
Same here. A lot of basketball was watched in my house. Getting back into it here with CU. Kind of had that awkward break here, and now it's really kind of a consistent stretch that they're going to have leading up to that spring game. Mel Tucker says that they're not holding back; they're throwing the offense and defense at these guys, so they have the summer as well to kind of further absorb things. Definitely doesn't sound like they're easing into this with the new coaching staff.
Yeah, I think he wants to throw as much at them as possible and just see what they can handle. And it sounds like in certain position groups they're doing pretty well with that. The running backs are doing well from what it sounds, and guys are handling it. And I've talked to the top 3 quarterbacks, and they say, at some point during this spring so far, I've talked to Montez and Lydell and Neuer, and they've all said they really enjoy the offense and really just kind of taken to it. So, hey, you got to throw it at them and just see what they can handle.
On defense, we both had a chance to talk to the new outside linebackers coach, Brian Michalowski. He comes in initially as a quality control hire and shows enough in a short period of time to actually get hired on as their outside backers coach. Quite an interesting resume. He's coached at Arizona State, in Germany, at the junior college ranks. Right. Younger coach, brings a lot of energy and is very active on social media. He brings quite a bit to this coaching staff.
Yeah, he really does. And I think you got to I think a lot of times fans want to see a lot of experience on a resume, but I think sometimes it's good to bring in a young coach and bring in that youthful energy. We saw it with like a Quan Drake that wasn't really overly experienced when he came in here. Certainly not at the Power 5 level, and did a great job. And Michalowski's so far sounds like guys really like him. I talked to Carson Wells, and they really like him. I mean, they think he brings in a lot of energy, and have kind of taken to that year of the sack Twitter handle that hashtag that he uses, and they think that's kind of funny. And he starts every slideshow with that, and so he brings in some energy, and I think they need that.
And he inherits a group with some experience now, with Carson Wells getting a lot of playing time. I don't know if there was a guy that showed more improvement over the course of last season, maybe Davion Taylor as well. Right. Carson Wells was, at the end of the season, one of the most consistent playmakers.
Yeah, he really was, and I think he's a guy that could be on this defense as well. He's added a little bit of weight. He started spring at 253 and is now just under 250 and played just under 240 last year, so a little bit bigger. He said he likes the weight, and he's a guy that, you're right, I mean, from game 1 to game 12 was a much better player, and if he can keep continuing that, I mean, he's still a fairly young guy. If he can keep doing that, he'll be kind of a force out there on the outside edge.
Not to be forgotten is Numutu Falo, who he mentioned second when talking about the outside backers. Fifth-year senior now. Doesn't have quite as much explosiveness as we've seen out of a Carson Wells, but he's pretty seasoned at this point now too.
Yeah, I mentioned him as really a pretty good first and second down outside linebacker who's developing into a good third down outside linebacker. So you like to see that. I like Numo too, and I think he's a good kid, and I know he's been through some ups and downs, but I'd love to see him get an opportunity. When he came back here last year, he was so determined to prove himself again, and just didn't really have the opportunities last year. I think he was still probably maybe getting back into it, but I'd love to see him have a great senior year. He's one of those guys that I've always enjoyed talking to, and even through those ups and downs, I think he's a good kid.
On the back end, I had a chance to talk to Trey Udofia, who had his ups and downs at cornerback the previous 2 years, and now he's at safety, and he feels like this suits him much better. Last year, he kind of got in trouble with the former staff because they thought he put on too much weight. Yeah. Now he can carry that weight being on the back end.
Yeah, this might be a more natural position for him, and Coach Tucker said afterwards, after practice today, that that's a good spot for him, and that there's some competition back there, and they need safeties for sure. I mean, that's one spot that they don't have a whole lot of depth and a whole lot of experience. So, if Trey can really take to that, then he showed flashes at corner. Mm-hmm. So if he can really take to that, I think he can be a pretty good safety.
He has good ball skills.
Yeah.
So I could see him being a guy that can create a lot of takeaways on that back end.
Like a Tedrick Thompson type?
Yeah. And he wants to put on about 10 more pounds. It's a much more technical position in terms of, he said, you have to see the entire offense, whereas his corner, you're pretty much on an island, so there's an adjustment period there. Hassan Hippolyte, when he gets back in there, I'm really anxious to see if he makes a run at a starting job, because Mel Tucker talks about being a physical football team, and that's a physical football player.
Yeah, it really is, and he's one I'm excited about. Aaron Maddox as well, limited this spring. Those are two guys that could end up being the starting safeties, but they're not really participating much this spring. And then Darian Rakestraw, is a guy that he's played almost every position on the roster. It feels like. I think he started at receiver, then corner, now safety. And if he's a guy that really embraces that and takes to it, I know he struggled a little bit last year, but if he can get better, I think that he's got the physicality to play back there. So they might end up having 3-4 guys that can play back there.
You had a chance to talk to Tim Lynott back for his senior year. Again, another player that's shown some really good things in his career, but the Achilles injury a year and a half ago, it was tough to kind of graded him on a curve a little bit last year because that's a tough injury to come back from. But what was his message? Is he 100% now?
Yeah, he's 100%, and he did say that really impacted him early last season. He said around the Nebraska game, he was starting to really feel not really the Achilles, but some things in the foot. Because of the Achilles, were bothering him and it bothered him for the next several games. And he's back 100% and working at center. They had Colby Purcell working a little bit at guard. I think that's more of let's just get as many guys as we can play in center and the versatility. But Tim Lynott's he's played both, and I think that when he had to shift a couple years ago, he struggled with that. But if he can focus on one, I know he'd love to play center. He's worked a lot on his own there, so we'll see where he ends up. But I think that he's kind of embracing that leadership role. He's one of the old guys now. He's the only healthy senior out there with Brett Tons out, so he's embracing that role.
The offensive linemen received a lot of criticism, and rightfully so last year. If that group plays better, they play in a bowl game. What do you think their ceiling is this year? You've got Arlington Hambright coming in. You've got William Sherman now in the 305 to 310 range. Colby Purcell, another year in the weight room. He's a workout warrior. Now he has experience. There's a lot of reasons for optimism, but I would imagine most CU fans out there are kind of taking a wait-and-see approach with this group.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what I've seen the last couple of weeks is when we've written some good things about the offensive line, people say, yeah, I heard this before, because we really have. I mean, we've heard a lot of good things. I think it was just 2 years ago, like this could be the best offensive line CU's had in a long time, and it really wasn't. So I think that for me with the offensive line, it's more of just, let's just wait and see. I mean, we've kind of been snake-bitten a little bit by the expectations, but I think that there's certainly room there for a lot of improvement over last year. And I think with a guy like Arlington Hambright coming in, you've got experience at the Power 5 level. I think that they should be better. I mean, I would expect them to be better.
All right, 4 spring practices in. We'll be back on Wednesday with more analysis.